Welcome back for the second part of Fatal Attractions crossover. Before I jump right into these, let me say thank you to all the subscribers once again. I really enjoy any feedback you give, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to like and subscribe and leave comments. I love comments. This is continuing my journey through 1993. This is actually the second part to another video of the Fatal Attractions storyline from X-Men that was celebrating the 30th anniversary of the X-Men at the time. And I'm looking at it 30 years from that time. So this is kind of the book or the storyline that got me started on this 1993 journey. Go see part 1. I'll go into a longer diatribe about that. Let's jump into these. So X-Men 25 is the next part of our storyline here. In the last part, we saw Magneto crash Illyana's funeral. Colossus turned heel and helped Magneto when Bishop had him on the ropes. They had a big psychic magnetic battle with Xavier, and then Magneto escaped. So X-Men 25, this is the best-selling book of the bunch. It ranked in at number 35. Believe it or not, an X-Men book with a big, huge thing that happens in it was the 35 selling book of 1993. That just lets you know what else was selling above it. Lots of Image, lots of Valiant, Death of Superman, Nightfall. X-Men have been kind of knocked off its perch in a way. And I mean, it was like the top selling book of that month and stuff, but on the year, it was still just the number 35 book. Got a cool Gambit hologram there, and you're like, ooh, why is Gambit on there when we got this like pretty cool looking, what's going on with Wolverine? Another wraparound cover. Not quite as busy as some of the other covers that we have. We got Andy Kubert doing this one, who was still doing a little bit of a Jim Lee clone at this point on the book. That he even admits, but you do see the Kubertness of it, but it's like these little hatching lines, and just the way he like constructs the body and stuff is very still Jim Lee-ish in a way. It is odd that they did the Gambit on this particular book. I mean, Wolverine has his own book over here that has his own hologram, so I guess that's why they didn't do Wolverine on the X-Men book as well. But let's jump in. So Magneto's, you could have almost skipped the first two parts, the X Factor and the X Force issues. Maybe have to have read Uncanny and this one, and then the Wolverine. And that's really about the only three parts of the story that I would say are necessary to understand everything that happened. But as I said, there was some good art with Joe Quesada and Greg Capullo in the other two books that are more or less prologues for the whole story. So anyway, let's jump in. We got Nick Fury here talking to world leaders about Magneto protocols. Magneto stepped over the line finally, and they are putting up this big like Magneto defense laser thing around the Earth. Pretty cool layout here. Magneto and his acolytes, and we've got a couple of the X Factor guys up here too. They're not really with him. They're just kind of there to I think they're there more or less to make sure he doesn't go over the line. So Magneto is basically like, okay, they're going to set up this protocol thing, and it's going to be pointless because I'm going to go down and not only shut it down, but I think it causes like a EMP to like basically shut all the power down around the world, around the globe. And you have like the Thing reacting to it, Mr. Fantastic, the things in the shower. I don't know why the power going out while he's in the shower made him all mad, but shouldn't have affected the water, maybe the lights. And they don't show it here, but they do say like planes and stuff were crashed, and because of like the power going out, hospitals going down. They say it later in the issue. I don't think they do a good job in this part where it's like all happening of really showing the chaos of what happens when the power goes out around the world. And of course, the X-Men have their Shi'ar backup generator that Beast is going to fix and bring online. Nice group shot here. It's always funny when there's one character just wearing like normal clothes. And we're going to spend the next couple of pages essentially just talking about the plan of the attack to go take on Magneto. Magneto, back in his Jim Lee animated series hover chair at Illyana's funeral, he was just in a standard one that Magneto wrecked. They don't really have too much of a back and forth. It's more like who gets to go and who doesn't. And the ones that are picked to go are almost, they're trying to imply like it's, they're not going to come back. They've got to go in, and good chance that they're not coming back. But Xavier has said, I'm going. Which they do have a little debate about that. Cyclops does with him about like, that's not the best idea, but he's got this like cybernetic suit that he can use his mental powers to help more or less animate his body, his legs. And he says it takes considerable effort to do this. So by doing this, and you're like, well, why didn't he always do that? Of course, Xavier's been able to walk and not walk and gone back and forth a couple times. But he mentions that it takes like so much effort to pull this off that it kind of weakens his power to do what he needs to do, and that's kind of why he never did it before. But they talk about the teams that they need to do the thing. So you got Wolverine and Gambit on a team, Jean and Xavier. Xavier needs Jean because he has weakened telepathy because of the suit. He needs her to kind of give him a boost. And Quicksilver and Rogue, she's kind of like a powerhouse, and they need him for the speed. So their plan is to go in, and they don these cool X-Men spacesuits. Their plan is to go in and into Avalon and essentially plant a computer virus that makes them invisible to their sensors so that they can get close enough to Magneto to take him out. Xavier's kind of come to the point like Magneto just needs to be put to pasture. And this goes pretty quick because it is just kind of like, okay, they're infiltrating the place, and there's some dialogue about not much of anything. They put in like a disc or something. I think Rogue did it. Getting out of their spacesuits because it's harder to move and fight in their spacesuits. Quicksilver did his reconnaissance, and he did it so fast around the acolytes. Here it is. Rogue puts in some like computer virus disc, and that, I guess it's like a computer virus. Teleportation systems have been activated. By whom? So then Magneto goes to take him on. And he starts cutting through him basically like a hot knife through butter. Look at that Wolverine shot. For what happens in this, Wolverine doesn't play like a huge part in the early part of the book. He's just kind of there, kind of like, yeah, let's go do it, bub. There's your Gambit moment. He gets the hologram on the car, but that's pretty much his moment. There was some stuff earlier with Gambit and Rogue because they have the budding relationship going. She's also still kind of carrying a torch for Magneto, even though in the Uncanny X-Men before this, he basically just threw her to the side. But there's your Gambit moment. And she does come, Rogue does kind of come to like, get him. Because, Magneto was like really going at Gambit, and she steps in to save him. And Quicksilver comes and knocks his helmet off, which of course is exposing him now to Xavier, who's ready to make the final attack. They have like Quicksilver and Magneto, of course, have like a little father-son disagreement here. And here we're getting to the big moment with Wolverine coming after Magneto, and Magneto kind of being like, okay, like, you've never learned your lesson. I've always thrown you to the side. It's a joke that you even try to attack me. It's time for me to end this. And you start seeing the adamantium coming out of his skin. So this was a solicited thing. This was known this was going to happen in this issue, that Magneto was going to rip the adamantium out of Wolverine. And how it was going to be done was always like, well, how is he going to do that? And so to see it coming out almost like T-2000 Terminator style, like just oozing up out of through his skin, was pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. And this was a major moment of X-Men history. And what's crazy is, you would think like, oh, they'll figure out a way to fix him, within like a few issues or whatever. He's going to take some time to recover. I mean, no. I think Wolverine had the adamantium removed from him for like the next, gosh, at least 8 years. I don't think he got it back until around 2000 or so. And this is 93, so 7 years. So it was a long time. This had ramifications going forward, and even established some things about Wolverine, and we'll see in the next issue. But so pretty big moment. We've had Colossus turn heel. I guess I should have mentioned in here somewhere too that Colossus's heel turn he still was going to do it with Magneto, but at the same time there was a part with the Acolytes kind of like being aware that they were on the ship, and Colossus knew it, and Colossus did some stuff to cover it up. So he didn't go full traitor, but he still was pretty disillusioned with what was going on with Magneto, or with the Charles Xavier. And I glazed right over that at some point. So I guess that's, as I'm flipping through it, that's kind of a failing on the book's part, maybe. It was right there. So you just get the one page of Colossus, and there's kind of a hint that he knew, like, yeah, I guess he was supposed to be observing it, and he saw him, and he basically was like, oh, no, everything's good here. Get back to Wolverine getting his adamantium ripped out. And that's why I was saying it was odd that they didn't go ahead and do a Wolverine hologram on this particular book. But Wolverine had his own title, so that's where he gets the hologram. So then we have Xavier, and Xavier's already bringing up Magneto's trauma to kind of incapacitate him. And this would spark something to come down the line too. This is also like kind of the origin of Onslaught, which would be the next big X-Men thing to happen. Well, I guess not the next big thing, because okay, so after this storyline there is a big Avengers crossover, and then after that in 94 we get the Age of Apocalypse, and then after that is Onslaught. But this is the beginnings of Onslaught, so they're going to kind of do a little mind meld here, and he puts Magneto in a coma, and it takes it out of Xavier too, but he's at least, he's with it enough to know, like, okay, what I've done is pretty hardcore. He's like, I hope that God forgives me for what I did. You've done some pretty crappy things. This is probably the best thing you've done. I mean, here's the guy that will walk into a mall and shut everyone's minds off, or erase their memories from even knowing that the X-Men were there. But taking out the mass murderer who just shut off the power grid to Earth, causing planes to crash and hospitals to close, like, people to die and stuff. God forgive me for stopping him. You should be asking for forgiveness for other things, Xavier. But so Colossus he decides to stick. He's like, I'm going to stay with him and just kind of help him recover. He's like, I can't go back with you guys. I've already turned heel on you, even though I did help you. And so, but the X-Men got a bolt because Wolverine's in a state. And even at this part, you're looking at Wolverine and you're going, man, he just has like adamantium just like sticking out of his skin. How are they this is the unbreakable metal. How are they going to take care of this? And that's your cliffhanger for the next big part of this storyline. Which is, of course, Wolverine 75. And there's your killer Wolverine hologram. If you're into like chasing variants and stuff, I guess there's a hologram like this that has like a blue color. I don't know if it was on purpose or an error that people chase after. Mine is not one of those. Just in case you're into that kind of thing and looking for it. So Wolverine 75. Let's look at our little spread cover here. You got Wolverine. I don't know why they did it like skin colored. Like it's not coming out all the way like it was in the other book. And I don't know if that was a editorial choice. Like we can't put the metal, like the knives essentially coming out of straight up out of his skin on the cover, but this is almost more gruesome to me. It looks a lot more painful to me because it's just like stretching the skin and like pushing the skin, but not like actually puncturing it, and that seems more painful to me. I don't know. Am I wrong on that? And of all the things Magneto did, it's like he didn't like rip the claws or like, bend the claws or something. He just pulled the adamantium from the skeleton straight out. But we got the other Kubert, and see, Andy did the last book, and now we get Adam. They're heading back, and so Jean's gonna do some psychic therapy here, trying to calm him, just get him into a calm state. That's a pretty cool splash page. You've got like all the Wolverine traumas have a Weapon X, Lady Deathstrike, Sabretooth. I don't know what the melting clock is about. That's a pretty cool page though. Larry Hama's still the writer. Larry Hama was a long-time writer on Wolverine. That's a pretty awesome page too. So now we're recapping. What happened in the last issue. Going up the nose shot. Still pretty cool. Like this whole design, I like Adam Kubert a lot. I like Andy, but Adam has like a better sense of layout sometimes. Super cool. Like he's in like kind of a stasis angle. This is a Weapon X flashback. And I don't know how much of the X-Men knew about some of this. Like Jean knew about some of the stuff that happened to him. That she's like finding these memories. And I don't even know that Wolverine really knew about Weapon X. Like I feel like that was a repressed memory at the time. Us as readers knew about it. And it really only predates the story by a couple of years. I want to say it came out in either 90 or 91. So they're trying to get back to Earth as quick as possible. There goes Wolverine's like little medic thing that he's in. They don't really show the adamantium sticking out of his bones there. I don't know how they got the adamantium off. But he is starting to heal. Yeah, they mention here that he's never told them about it. But he may not have really known about him himself. They don't really explain how they got the adamantium out of him, like the rest of the way out. Just they're in his mind. They're just in his mind. And then we cut here, and it's like all the adamantium is just gone. Like they got it out of him somehow. they're mostly just talking about his mind and like how his trauma was localized, and they're talking about his healing factor. That was always the weird thing to me about this in general. So we leave him, and he's got like all this metal sticking out of his body, because it's not like Magneto ripped it out and then just threw it, like took all the metal out and threw it to the side. He just kind of pulled it off of his bones a little bit and left it like this, and just, or like this, just sticking out. So neat idea to pull the adamantium from his bones, but it's almost like they didn't think through the like, well, what do we do with the adamantium, the unbreakable metal? We have it sticking out like in, like a sculpture coming off of his body. Next issue, we're just going to ignore it. We're going to pretend like he just ripped it all out, I guess. But they don't even show it. Man, some really cool, good art in this, though. That's awesome. That's awesome. Even this panel, awesome. Is this Kubert? This may be Jay Lee. Let me look. All right, I know I'm going back and forth in this book. Let's see. It doesn't say. Just Adam Kubert, Mark Farmer, Dan Green, Mike Pennington. That almost looks like Jay Lee, though. This does too, that face in particular. The paper is changing. Oh, it did. So this is a newsprint insert for Midnight Suns. But that makes this, that's kind of cheap. They're basically putting in this insert that makes the book feel thicker for that $4 cover price. So where did the adamantium go? I guess that's still in the mine, though. Wolverine's being touched by an angel. So I guess this is like Wolverine's kind of wanting to go. He's like, the light, who I know you, I'm ready to go, darling. It's Ilyana. It's a nice looking Ilyana. Ilyana's coming to take him, but she pushes him back. And it's, look at his, it's like an empty sack of skin. That must be where he lost his nose in upcoming issues. They save him. This issue is basically, they spend the issue kind of mentally saving him. And he even wakes up enough to save Jean right at the end. So his healing factor is enough for him to wake up from their shuttle or whatever. And Jean was getting pulled out of it, and he's able to pull himself together enough to grab her arm and save her. So even in his worst moment, Wolverine comes out a hero. They're back in the danger room. He's healed up. He healed up pretty quick. Healed up on the plane. See, there was a time when Wolverine would get beat up, and it was very much like he would need time to recover. You know, I think it was in like Fall of the Mutants, where he gets like sort of eviscerated, and he's like down for the count for pretty much the rest of the issue. And he doesn't come, and I liked Wolverine when he was like that. After this, I feel like Wolverine almost becomes indestructible. And then when he gets his adamantium back, I mean, he just like walks into a room that's just like, he gets covered in bullets, or like the Hulk rips his face off, or Punisher shoots him, and like, you know, it just shows like his adamantium skull. And while it looks cool and stuff, it takes him away to where he's become like Superman level of invulnerability. While he can get damaged, he's so invincible, there's no stakes anymore. I mean, you look back at the Wolverine Miller miniseries, and he gets taken out in a sword fight and is left for dead. So even though he had the unbreakable bones, even though he had the healing factor, he could still be kind of like beaten back, you know? And there was some worry that like, how much could he really take? But nowadays, I mean, even not including the Krakoa reincarnation or, you know, clone body stuff, he's become this like such indestructible thing that it's taken away from the character, in my opinion. But anyway, so he's already recovered. It doesn't really say, it says time heals all wounds. It doesn't say how much time passes. Could have been a day, could have been a few weeks. They probably should have showed a little bit more time passage of him recovering. So the big reveal here, though, you know, he's trying to just hang, but he is getting beat. He is getting beat a little bit. His bones are breakable now, and he gets mad. And I'm the best at what I do. And we, instead of getting a snicked, we get shook. And we reveal he has bone claws. This was a pretty neat, interesting thing. I know a lot of people don't like bone claws. I thought bone claws were neat, and my interpretation of it at the time was because the thought process was he didn't have the claws until he had the adamantium. That's a cool idea to me. I like that better than him having claws as like a mutant power, as an original mutant power. What I liked when this first happened, my interpretation was because he had the claws for so long, essentially his body determined that was part of him. And part of the healing factor, recovering from the loss of the adamantium, was to fill in the missing part of his body with bone claws. That's not what they end up doing later on. They leave it kind of ambiguous for a long time because he's like, I don't know. I don't remember having these claws. This is new to me. I like my interpretation of it better, but I don't really like the Wolverine origin miniseries and the stuff that's come, the stuff that they've added like post 2000 about his past. To me, there's Weapon X, and then everything else is kind of in my head canon. It's not. Get more of the popping the bone claws over and over. You know, Wolverine with his bond with the teenage girls of the team. We got Jubilee. He talks about keeping a channel open for the claws to pop. Much better detail. You couldn't really tell in this picture that they are bone. You kind of see some like slight hatching right there, but there they look more like bone for sure. And there they look more like bone. And then he decides he's got to go off on a journey of self-discovery. And eventually he'll devolve into something and lose his nose and stuff. I don't know why it goes in that direction from here, but man, Adam Kubert, he does a great Wolverine. He really does. I'm glad he comes back on the title on occasion. But even that shot. And he does the hair good, like wild. And I hate when they do his hair all like tame and pretty boy. I love Hugh Jackman, and I thought he did a great job as Wolverine. But man, when the comics started trying to make him be more Hugh Jackman-like, along with being completely indestructible, that's when it was over. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this was the number 65 selling book of 93. Now we're getting to the wrap-up issue of Excalibur. This one falls at number 283. That's probably the last time Excalibur book broke the top 300 of a year. And it's totally because it was part of the storyline. And even that's being generous. It's really not much part of the storyline at all. Here's our wraparound cover. It's kind of tying up some loose ends with Colossus, because of course Kitty's on the team. Pretty cool Nightcrawler, though. Nightcrawler hologram. I think Ken Lashley is the artist on this one. And I'm going to go pretty quick on this because most of this has nothing to do with the rest of the storyline. It's right here we get the kind of fallout from Colossus. The X-Men they come to chat. Kitty going through her feels with Professor X about everything that happened, because Kitty was there. She went to Ilyana's funeral, and that infected her too, because that was her best friend. So she's going through her feels about that. She's going through her feels about Colossus. Now Colossus is donning his Acolyte's costume. Pretty good shot there. Ken Lashley's pretty good. Some of it kind of reminds me of Ron Lim. He's got these long faces. I guess Cable's recovered. Don't know what was going on. X-Force 25. This was the last footnote. I guess Cable recovered. I didn't get the Cable recovery issue. I don't really have a lot to say about this one. The art's okay. It's kind of an epilogue. This is the big part, I guess, is for Peter to come and have this discussion with Kitty. Pretty good splash page there. I mean, you can tell when the artist is like doing like pages like, oh, that's a pretty good one, but like this. It's almost like, I'm just kind of get that done. Let me get to this page. I bet a lot of people even skip this issue. Sorry. Ooh, that's what I feel about this issue. The bulk of the storyline is over. You got the Summers children meeting each other. And doesn't Rachel go on to be the Ascani, and she kind of raises Cable in the future as a baby? That's a weird paradox. I don't know why Cable's even in this issue. Kitty's like, come on, we want to help you. And he's like, I don't want your help. I'm as clear-headed as I've ever been. You got Rachel Summers Phoenix fighting with Cable. What are they doing there? I guess they incapacitate him somehow. Click. Okay, Colossus has been stuck in this form for a little bit. I can't remember how that happened, but essentially they're trying to make it to where he can change back. Back to this little fight again. I guess she gets the better of him, and she's starting to feel that there's this strange connection between them. And I don't remember if it was explained yet. I don't remember when that came out, but yes, she goes on to be the Ascani in the future, and essentially raises a little baby Cable. And she's somehow feeling that connection. So here come the Acolytes looking for Colossus. Pretty good Nightcrawler face right there. Nightcrawler looks really tall here, though. Well drawn. Has this nice jerry curl going on. This is a pretty good splash page in general. I would just say Nightcrawler looks too big. So essentially what they do is they're able to make him turn back into a human. And he appreciates it. But at the end of the day, he still goes back with them. He still armors back up and goes back with the Acolytes. But it gives him something to think about. Special thanks to Chris Claremont and Alan Davis, Forgers of the Sword. So I don't know maybe they're wrapping up their run here, whoever the creatives are on this. I didn't even say because I wanted to just get through this one. A lot of footnotes in this one. I can't even read it. That is why I didn't tell you who was on it. I can't read it. Scott Lobdell is the writer. Yeah, Ken Lashley is the artist. Man, look at that. This face, even part of the title fades out, you can at least kind of see that. But man, I'm holding it close to the camera. I can see it better looking at my monitor than I can like looking at it in person. But when it's like that, you can't read that. Terrible, terrible design right there. There was some wonky stuff like that in the 90s in general, where they would put like background colors and stuff and then put text on top of background colors. That was awful. So anyway, that is the Fatal Attraction storyline. This was the big seller of the X-Men line of the year. It was eclipsed by the death of Superman, or I should say the return of Superman and Nightfall and several other things, believe it or not. Big lasting ramifications in these three. You know, if you're tracking down these issues, if you don't have these and you're like, I kind of just want to get the meat of the story, these are the three you want. The two X-Men titles and Wolverine. Cool Quesada art in this one. Pretty good Greg Capullo art, even though he's doing a little bit of a Liefeld clone, but better than Liefeld in this one. You know, you got some tie-up stuff with Colossus in this one, but even when I read this, I just kind of like skim read it. It was a boring one. You heard me yawn in it. So that's all I got for this storyline. I'm going to pack these up and put them away for another 30 years. And until next time, read your comics.